Welcome to Zephyr Yoga Inspiration. I offer these podcasts for free, and your support really does make a difference and is appreciated. To make a donation, please click the link in the episode description or visit zephyryoga.com.
So welcome to our session together. Before we kind of venture into the theme of today's practice, I want to reflect that we did 5 practices on the yamas, which are ethical and moral guidelines and observances in which we start to have more intimate relationships with the world around us, with other people in relationship to ourselves. Then we worked through the second limb of the 8-limb path, the niyamas. We had 5 practices that we really worked with the moral and ethical observances and guidelines of how to have deeper relationships with ourselves. So remembering the work that we have done with the yamas and niyamas, the first and second limb to the 8-limb path, according to the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali's way of practicing yoga, because we're now working with the third limb, asana. Now, asana is an interesting one because asana is what we in the West actually associate with yoga. So asana means a posture. And most of the time when someone goes, oh, I did yoga, it's just assumed that you have been doing postural yoga, but not all yoga uses posture. Like bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, all these yogas don't actually focus around asana. There's Raja yoga that works with different aspects of yoga, and asana is a part of it, or tantra yoga, asana is a part of it. Swara yoga has nothing to do with asana. So there's all these yogas, these ways of guiding people to have a more intimate relationship with reality and awakening towards our own self realization and transformation into that wholeness, oneness, completeness of our experience of what yoga is trying to point us towards. But what we are doing with regards to asana is under the umbrella of Hatha Yoga. So Hatha, those two Sanskrit terms means sun, moon, or solar, lunar. And what it's pointing us towards is forcing those two opposing opposites to have a relationship. So it's called forceful yoga. You are forcing opposing forces to have an intimate relationship, to be yogad or unioned or yoked, or this intimate relationship as they weave together and create this oneness, wholeness, completeness. So most of us, we start to see that actually by practicing asana, we actually connect to more of a state of physical, energetic, mental, emotional, as well as spiritual well-being. And it's a very effective tool doing asana. But it is only kind of, around 100 years old, what we're practicing. And I want to kind of demystify that because ancient asanas were more like mudras because they were seated poses and certain poses to actually manipulate energy so they can direct it towards greater states of consciousness or higher states of consciousness or different levels of awakening. So as yoga has evolved into being what it is today, it actually came from Krishnamacharya, who is said to be the grandfather of Yoga-Asana, who taught Iyengar, Pattabhi Jois, and his son Desikachar, 3 different lineages of yoga that are probably most popular today, that has evolved into all the many different schools and brands of yoga that we get to experience. However, I have to actually just highlight that it wasn't those 3 men who brought it over. It actually was a woman in the 1920s. Her name's Eugenie, and her stage name is Indra Devi. And she was so persistent and wanted to study yoga that she kept on pestering Krishnamacharya to teach her, and he wouldn't teach her because she was a woman. but she kept on relentlessly showing up and trying to force him to teach her. Finally, he gave in and taught her. And she then brought it to the West, to Hollywood, and started teaching actresses and actors, Marilyn Monroe, all the kind of, in the 1920s, all those Hollywood actors that started to influence. By the 1960s, it was kind of known and became this kind of huge movement that now has evolved into what we are experiencing today. So I just want to kind of give you that idea that what we are doing in asana is very different than what Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras was actually pointing us to. When he spoke about asana in 246, he was talking about asana to be able to meditate, the asana in which you sit to be able to meditate. The Yoga Sutras is like a manual to be able to guide you towards the state of yoga. So it's like this manual to practice yoga, to experience the state of yoga. And so the asana, sukhasana, padmasana, virasana, all these seated poses to be able to sit for meditation. But then we extended it into downward dog and upward dog and, trikonasana and all this other kind of yoga poses. But do remember that if you read the text, he's really actually pointing us towards this asana is most important. So we're going to focus on trying to shape and sequence our yoga practice today to be able to effectively sit in sukhasana or whatever pose you feel more comfortable in sitting, and to be able to open you to experience meditation. So to go through the practical instructions around asana according to the Yoga Sutras, Sutra 246 states Sthira Sukham Asanam. It says you just need two things to do an asana, Sthira and Sukham. Sthira is this steadiness, a stability. It's a structural integrity, physical, energetic, and mental, in way in which you can hold space. And within that space, you experience Sukham, a comfort, an ease, an effortless way in which you abide in your embodiment, physically, energetically, and mentally. So notice those are two opposing forces, Sthira and Sukham, this stability and then comfort, having this relationship. So with that, that's how you practice asana, Sthira and Sukham. To master asana in 247, it states that you have to create effort in meditating on something specific, becoming more effortless. That you have to create effort in turning your mind's eye attention and consciously meditating on something specific, becoming more effortless. Again, two opposing forces, effort and effortless, having a relationship. And noticing that the mind's function is to think, and it will think about yesterday and all this stuff that happened, and you're trying to understand what happened yesterday, or projecting into the future in your the to-do list, and so your mind's floating into the future. So they realize that the mind kind of vacates the embodied experience, running around like a disobedient puppy. And what we're trying to do is train that mind puppy to come and sit and stay. So you need to give it something to do. And Patanjali lists this from Sutra 134 to 144. And I could spend all hour to list those and practice those, but I want to really give you a simple practice. We're going to just focus on the first three. Sutra 134 states that you can focus on breath awareness. When you do your Ujjayi breath, that whispering of ha through your nose, you focus on the sound of your breath, the movement, the coolness of the inhale, the warmth of your exhale, the shape of your breath. Where do you breathe in? Where do you breathe out? So you become really open and curious and drawing your attention to breath awareness. And then the second thing, Sutra 135 says, open to sensation, the sensation of the prana pattern, the vital energy as you breathe and move, Or it might be emotional releasing, energetic unfolding. You might notice like mental images come up and you have a physical reaction to it. It might be just the simplicity of the sensation of stretching or strengthening. But you absorb your mind and create effort in focusing on that sensation, becoming more effortless. The third thing in Sutra 136 is it says that you need to cultivate light. We cultivate this light, and we see this prana. Prana uses your breath as a vehicle as it moves in and out and circulates through you, creating these prana patterns, these sensations. But it also, as a byproduct, is this vital energy, this light of intelligence, the same light that lights your sight, that lights your cognition, that lights your cells to support its homeostasis. This light is said, this prana, to be inherently healing as it creates light. But then it also is inspiring as it opens you to more insight, because light, when we turn on a light bulb, we can actually see what's going on, and we can create more understanding because we can see through that light. And then there's this kind of light of transformation as you breathe and move in your Yoga-Asana, that you create this fire, this tapas, this heat for positive change, but it cultivates this light and this light of transformation, of dissolving the negative thinking, the emotional distress, the instability felt, and those disturbances in the breath and the mind, those 4 symptoms of suffering from Sutra 131. And we create this transformation as you acknowledge maybe you're finding it difficult to sit. Because most of the time we sit like this behind our desk. We stand with our phone and slouching. And through sitting in this kind of flexion addiction we have in the West, our front of the body gets locked short, the back of the body gets locked long. And to meditate like this, it's really depressing. So what we're going to try to do in our physical asana is try to actually reverse that. So we're going to do a lot of extensions and leading us towards back bending, so we can engage the back of the body to wake up, to open the front of the body as it's been locked short, and create this relationship between the back and front. But we're also going to work with this kind of lateral flexion of opening up the sides of the body, compressing one side, opening, and doing the same, as well as twisting from left to right. And this idea of the opposing opposites, front and back, side to side, left and right, coming back to the center towards your core, as well as then addressing the hips. Because we tend to sit in chairs like this, the hip flexors become locked short and tight, the butt muscles become locked long and weak. And so what we're going to try to do is really engage the posterior part of the body to actually engage and lengthen the front of the body, so we get out of that flexion addiction of being like this all the time. Sleeping, eating, looking at your phone, typing, driving. And so the idea is to create the Sthira and Sukham, the steadiness and ease in your ability to sit. But also, as you focus the mind, you start to notice that the mind will return back home to its embodiment rather than lost in thought and fantasy. That through the discipline of effort, of focusing on your breath, sensation, and cultivating light, the results of your effort says that you will bathe in being effortless. And in Sutra 248, it states that as a result of practicing this way, the pair of opposites cease to exist or have an impact on you. That the good and the bad, the hot, cold, pleasure, pain, those pair of opposites are in this yoga, are in this intimate relationship, this union in which they don't have an impact on you, because you're in this meditative state, leading yourself towards samadhi, and you experience this profound stillness. The goal of practicing yoga, according to the Yoga Sutras, is Citta Vritti Nirodha, mental stillness, mental stilling of the fluctuations, in which you can meditate and awaken to that oneness, wholeness, completeness, that samadhi. But we recognize that sometimes it's really hard to be still, trapped in our brain. So you're like, don't think, be still, just be here present. And your brain's like, okay, I can do it for maybe a millisecond. And then my brain's like, ah. So yogis figured out, okay, we need to actually give the body some movement. So we're going to move the body, create activity for the body so it can actually experience physical stillness, kaya nirodha. We need to actually activate a lot of prana, move that prana and circulate it so we can actually feel that vital energy, that light. Sutra 136 is that we cultivate this light of sight and cognition and light of awareness, that we beam. And this light creates this jyoti, this orb of light, our own essence of our own light, that we are radiant, illuminated, resplendent beings, and we can bask in that light of stillness, prana nirodha. And when we experience that physical and energetic stillness, our mind, therefore, can actually open and reside and abide in that stillness, Citta Vritti Nirodha. So our practice today will hopefully get you to a point where you are so sick and tired of being a human doing, that you actually, by the end of the practice, really abide in being a human being, fully embodied as you.
If you would like to continue to practice, find out more information about the topics discussed, or to donate to this podcast, please visit zephyryoga.com or follow the link in the episode description. I thank you.